You have 2 weeks to clear out your office, my brother said, dropping the termination papers on my desk with a satisfied smirk. The board has unanimously voted to remove you as chief archivist. Grandfather's will was quite clear. Leadership of the Montgomery Historical Foundation belongs to me now. I stared at him, struggling to process his words. This can't be right, Nathan. Grandfather promised me. Promises mean nothing without legal documentation, Eleanor, he interrupted, adjusting his perfectly tailored suit. Perhaps if you'd spent less time buried in your precious artifacts and more time understanding how the real world works, you wouldn't be so shocked. My name is Eleanor Montgomery, 36 years old, and until 5 minutes ago, the chief archivist of the Montgomery Historical Foundation, a prestigious institution dedicated to preserving our city's history, established by my grandfather, Edward Montgomery, over 60 years ago. The foundation housed irreplaceable historical documents, photographs, and artifacts that told the story of Westbrook, from its founding in 1782 to the present day. For 15 years, I had dedicated my life to expanding and preserving our collections, earning a doctoral degree in archival science and turning down prestigious positions at major museums to continue my grandfather's legacy. Nathan, my older brother by 3 years, had shown little interest in the foundation until recently, right around the time he discovered its substantial endowment and valuable real estate holdings. The official transition ceremony will be next Friday, Nathan continued, glancing around my office with calculating eyes. The mayor and several major donors will be attending. I trust you'll make yourself scarce. Grandfather would never have left the foundation to you, I said, finding my voice at last. He knew you have no interest in historical preservation. You've never spent a single day working here. Nathan's smile didn't reach his eyes. That shows how little you knew him. In his final months, he realized the foundation needed stronger leadership, business leadership. All your careful cataloging and community programs are charming, but they don't secure the financial future of this institution. By financial future, you mean selling off parts of the collection and converting the West Wing into luxury condos. I asked, recalling the architectural plans I'd accidentally discovered on his tablet during our last family dinner. A flicker of surprise crossed his face before he composed himself. The foundation needs to evolve, Eleanor. Some assets are more valuable when liquidated than preserved. Grandfather understood that in the end. I thought of my grandfather, his passion for history, his meticulous approach to preservation, and his absolute commitment to keeping the Montgomery collection intact and accessible to the public. The man Nathan described was unrecognizable to me. When did he change the will? I asked quietly. 2 months before he died, Nathan replied, straightening a paperweight on my desk. After his stroke, when he was thinking clearly about the future. Now, I suggest you start packing. And Eleanor, he added, his voice hardening, don't get any ideas about removing anything from the archives. Everything here belongs to the foundation, to me, now. After he left, I sat motionless, staring at the termination papers. 2 months before his death, Grandfather had been in the hospital, barely able to sign his name, let alone make complex legal decisions. Something didn't add up. My office phone rang, startling me from my thoughts. Eleanor? It's Mabel. I just saw Nathan leaving. Did he? Yes. I cut in, relieved to hear from Grandfather's longtime assistant and my most trusted colleague. He's taking over. Says Grandfather changed his will after the stroke. There was a long pause. That's impossible, Mabel finally said, her voice unusually sharp. Edward made me promise not to tell anyone, but after the stroke, he was worried Nathan might try something like this. He had me witness a new will, one that explicitly named you as his successor and included specific provisions to prevent the collection from being sold off. My heart raced. Where is this will? Why wasn't it presented at the reading? That's the problem, Mabel sighed. Edward gave it to his attorney, Samuel Hayes. But Sam died in that car accident 3 weeks after Edward passed. His practice was taken over by his nephew, who claims he never found the document. I've been trying to track it down, but she trailed off. Nathan got to the nephew. I finished her thought. Paid him off to lose the will. I can't prove it, Mabel said carefully, but I witnessed that will, Eleanor. It exists, or it existed. And there's something else. Your grandfather left you a message, something about looking where the past and present meet, and that the Montgomery secret isn't in the regular archives. I assumed he was delirious from medication, but now I wonder. After hanging up, I sat back, my mind racing. Where the past and present meet, and not in the regular archives. It sounded like one of the riddles grandfather used to create for me when I was young, teaching me about hidden histories and the importance of looking beyond the obvious. I glanced at my watch. It was nearly 6 p.m., and most of the staff would be leaving. If I was going to search for whatever grandfather might have hidden, tonight would be my best opportunity. As darkness fell and the foundation emptied, I began my search, starting in grandfather's old office, now Nathan's, which connected to my smaller workspace. Nothing seemed out of place or unusual. I checked behind paintings, under floorboards, inside hollow books, all the hiding places grandfather had shown me over the years, but found nothing. Hours passed as I methodically worked my way through the building, focusing on areas that had special meaning to grandfather. The rare document room, the photographic archive, the map collection. Nothing. Exhausted and discouraged, I found myself in the foundation's central atrium around midnight. This grand space featured a magnificent grandfather clock that had been keeping time since the building opened in 1960. It stood at the exact spot where, according to local history, the city's founding documents had been signed in 1782. Where the past and present meet, I whispered, looking up at the clock. The clock's steady ticking was the only sound in the empty building as I approached it. Grandfather had been obsessed with this timepiece, insisting on winding it himself every Sunday without fail. After his stroke, he'd made me promise to continue the tradition. I opened the clock's case, expecting to find only the pendulum and weights. Instead, there was a small brass key taped to the inside of the door, with a note in grandfather's shaky hand. For my true hair, the foundation's foundation. My hands trembled as I removed the key. The foundation's foundation, another riddle. What was the foundation of the foundation? The answer came to me in a flash. The cornerstone. When the building was constructed, grandfather had insisted on placing a time capsule in the cornerstone to be opened on the foundation's 100th anniversary. That was still 40 years away, but perhaps. The cornerstone was located in the building's basement behind a decorative panel in what was now used as a storage room. Few people even knew it existed anymore. I made my way down the darkened stairs, using my phone's flashlight to guide me. The storage room was cluttered with old exhibition materials, broken display cases, and outdated office furniture. It took me nearly 30 minutes to clear a path to the far wall where the cornerstone was located. The decorative panel came away easily, revealing the massive stone block with MMTF 1960 carved into its face. Next to the cornerstone was a small, almost invisible keyhole. The brass key fit perfectly. With a soft click, a hidden drawer slid out from beneath the cornerstone. A drawer that, according to the building's plans, shouldn't exist. Inside was a leather portfolio and a sealed envelope with my name on it. My hands shook as I opened the envelope first. My dearest Eleanor, if you're reading this, then my fears about Nathan have proven correct. I've always known that his interest in our family's legacy extended only to its monetary value. But in my final months, he has become increasingly bold in his inquiries about the foundation's assets and endowment. What Nathan doesn't know, what no one outside the direct Montgomery line has ever known, is that the true value of our family's legacy isn't in the buildings or the official collections, but in what I've gathered in his portfolio. When your great-great-grandfather established himself in Westbrook, he did so by acquiring historical documents that powerful families wanted kept private. Not to blackmail, but to preserve the complete truth of our city's history, both glorious and shameful. For 5 generations, we Montgomerys have been the secret keepers of Westbrook, collecting and protecting the uncomfortable truths that others would prefer to erase. The portfolio contains my true will, witnessed and notarized, leaving you in control of the foundation with specific provisions to prevent the collection from being sold. But it also contains something far more valuable. Documentation of the secret history of Westbrook's 5 founding families, including the Caldwells. Nathan's father-in-law, Judge Richard Caldwell, would be particularly disturbed to learn that these papers exist, especially as he campaigns for the state Supreme Court. The Caldwell family fortune was built on land seized through forged deeds in the 1850s, land taken from the very people they claim to be helping. I've never used these archives as leverage that would betray the historian's sacred trust. But I've always made sure the relevant families know that a complete and accurate history exists, safely preserved by our family. Use this knowledge wisely, Eleanor. Not to threaten, but to protect our mission. The truth is a powerful tool when wielded with integrity. All my love. Grandfather. I opened the portfolio with trembling hands. Inside, I found grandfather's true will, exactly as Mabel had described, along with a collection of documents, photographs, and letters dating back to the 1800s. Most shocking were the papers related to the Caldwell family, land deeds with clearly forged signatures, private letters admitting to the fraud, and photographs documenting the family's intimate connection to city officials who helped cover up their misdeeds. No wonder Nathan had been so determined to gain control of the foundation. His father-in-law, Judge Caldwell, must have put him up to it, hoping to finally locate and destroy these documents before they could derail his Supreme Court ambitions. But what should I do with this information? Grandfather had never used it for leverage or personal gain. He had simply preserved it, honoring his commitment to maintaining a complete historical record. I carefully replaced everything in the portfolio. Dawn was breaking as I made my way back upstairs, the key and portfolio hidden safely in my bag. I had 1 week before the official transition ceremony, 1 week to decide how to proceed. The Montgomery Historical Foundation was unusually busy that Friday evening. Local dignitaries, board members, and majordomers filled the atrium, sipping champagne and waiting for the ceremony to begin. Nathan stood in the center of it all, receiving congratulations and sharing his visionary plans for the foundation's future. I waited in my office, my former office, watching through the window as Judge Caldwell arrived, clapping Nathan on the shoulder with paternal pride. They'd been thick as thieves since Nathan married the judge's daughter 5 years ago. Now I understood why. A soft knock at my door announced Mabel's arrival. "Everything's ready," she said, her eyes bright with anticipation. "The mayor just arrived. They're about to begin." I nodded, gathering my courage and the leather portfolio. "Let's not keep them waiting then." The atrium fell silent as I walked to the podium, Nathan's expression shifting from surprise to annoyance. "Eleanor," he hissed as I passed him. "What do you think you're doing? We agreed you wouldn't be here." I smiled politely. "I wouldn't miss this for the world, Nathan. It's a historic occasion." Before he could stop me, I reached the podium and addressed the crowd. "Thank you all for coming to this important transition in the Montgomery Historical Foundation's history. For over 60 years, this institution has been dedicated to preserving the complete and accurate history of Westbrook, both the stories we celebrate and those we might prefer to forget." Nathan was moving toward me now, his face a mask of barely controlled fury. Judge Caldwell watched with growing concern. "My grandfather believed that history belongs to everyone, not just those with the power to write it. He dedicated his life to ensuring that our city's full story would be preserved for future generations." I removed grandfather's will from the portfolio and held it up, which is why I'm pleased to share that I've located my grandfather's true final will, properly witnessed and notarized, in which he explicitly names me as his successor and includes specific provisions preventing the foundation's collection from being sold or dismantled. Gasps and murmurs spread through the crowd. Nathan froze mid-step. "Unfortunately," I continued, "this will was somehow misplaced after my grandfather's death, and a different document was presented instead, one that supposedly named my brother as successor, despite his complete lack of experience in historical preservation." Nathan reached the podium, gripping my arm. "That's enough," he growled. "You're embarrassing yourself." "Actually," came a new voice from the back of the room, "I think we should hear Ms. Montgomery out." The crowd parted to reveal District Attorney Maria Santos, whom I contacted earlier that week. Beside her stood Samuel Hayes' nephew, looking decidedly uncomfortable. "Mr. Hayes has provided my office with a very interesting statement regarding the handling of Edward Montgomery's will." The DA continued, moving forward. "It seems he was offered a substantial sum to misplace certain documents." Judge Caldwell had gone pale, while Nathan's grip on my arm tightened painfully. "You have no idea what you're doing," he whispered. "The Caldwells will destroy you." I smiled sadly at my brother. "No, Nathan, they won't. Because unlike you, I understand what the Montgomery legacy really means." I turned back to the assembled guests. Today's ceremony will proceed as planned, but with an important correction. As per my grandfather's legitimate will, I will continue to serve as the Foundation's director, and my first act will be to announce a special new exhibition examining the complex history of Westbrook's founding families, including previously unseen documents from our private archives. I looked directly at Judge Caldwell as I said this. His expression told me he understood perfectly what documents I was referring to. Of course, I added, this exhibition will be presented in the spirit my grandfather always insisted upon, not to shame or accuse, but to acknowledge our complete history, so that we can move forward with honesty and integrity. The aftermath was both more dramatic and more subdued than I expected. Nathan resigned from the Foundation's board the following Monday, citing personal reasons. Judge Caldwell quietly withdrew his candidacy for the state Supreme Court 2 weeks later. The exhibition went forward as planned, though I was careful to present the Caldwell documents in their proper historical context, without sensation or accusation. History, after all, is rarely about heroes and villains. It's about human beings making choices in complex circumstances. 6 months later, I sat in grandfather's old office, my office now, organizing materials for our newest acquisition, the complete archives of the city's first hospital, which had operated from 1820 to 1945. The Foundation was thriving, with increased attendance, new community programs, and a reinvigorated mission. A knock at the door interrupted my work. To my surprise, it was Nathan, looking older and less polished than when I'd last seen him. "Eleanor," he said awkwardly, hovering in the doorway. "Do you have a minute?" I gestured to the chair across from my desk, studying my brother's face. He'd lost weight, and there was a humility in his bearing that I'd never seen before. "I owe you an apology," he said after a long silence. "Several, actually. You tried to steal my inheritance and destroy grandfather's legacy." I replied evenly, "So yes, I'd say an apology is in order." Nathan winced. "It wasn't just about the money, you know? Not at first. Richard, Judge Caldwell, convinced me that the Foundation was wasting its potential under your leadership, that we could transform it into something more prestigious, more influential, more profitable," I added. "Yes," he admitted. "That too. But I never knew about the documents, not until Richard became desperate to find them. By then, I was in too deep. I considered my brother thoughtfully. Despite everything, he was still family, the only close family I had left." "What will you do now?" I asked. "I've taken a teaching position at the community college," he said with a small smile. "American history. Turns out I've developed a genuine interest in the subject, albeit too late." "It's never too late to develop an appreciation for history," I said, unconsciously echoing grandfather's words. "That's rather the point of preservation, making sure the past remains accessible to the present." Nathan nodded, then reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small object, our grandfather's pocket watch, which I believed lost after his death. "I took this," he admitted, placing it on the desk between us. "I shouldn't have. It belongs with the Foundation, with you." I picked up the watch, feeling its familiar weight. Grandfather would be pleased to know it's found its way home. As Nathan left, I opened the watch, smiling at the inscription inside. "Time reveals all truths. E.M." Grandfather had been right, of course. The truth had eventually come to light, as it almost always does. My job, the Montgomery family's true legacy, was to make sure it remained visible to all who cared to look, not hidden away in cornerstone drawers or basement archives, but properly preserved, contextualized, and shared. I placed the watch in the display case beside my desk, next to the brass key that had led me to the hidden portfolio. Together, they serve as daily reminders that history isn't just about preserving the past. It's about protecting the truth for the future, regardless of who might prefer it remained forgotten.